Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk podcast. Back again with you guys for another show. I'm joined by three wonderful people and Mike for this evening's show. Let's just go straight through the intro. I have a feeling, guys, when you're watching this is going to be a little bit of a laid-back kind of podcast from the way that our pre-podcast chat was going.
Why would you say
so let's see. Well, one, you're here.
You're very welcome.
And Drew starts off the pre-podcast show with, I'm not going to repeat what he said because, we're trying to keep this as professional as possible, which is tough.
That's why I said it off air.
You did. Anyway, let's go through the intros. Mike, how are you doing, mate?
I am lovely. Basking in the glow of Arsenal recapturing their world-class glory. We're the best team in the world again. I mean, it's only taken 2 games. But
let's do a quick plug before we go any further, because I was involved in a show on your channel with Arseblog and Gunner Blog, which was quite fun. Tell the listeners about it if they haven't seen it already. I'm going to leave a link to the description.
Well, that's very sexist because Amanda and Soph were on it as well.
Yes, but people know.
Oh, okay. They don't know the other guy. No, I was going to say you are. You need to stop podcasting, stop teaching, and start being a game show host, because we did a version of the Podlywed game, aka Mr. and Mrs. A little light fare for people who were getting ready to murder themselves after 2 consecutive losses and coronavirus, and just a little expose into how these podcast twins and couples get along. And since, technically, Drew, I'm sorry to, but Tom doesn't really have a podcast wife.
This is what I was thinking, is that I said it on the pod. Of all the people, if you're going to ask someone to host a Mr. and Mrs. show, I must be the loneliest guy you know.
Well, I have proof that you're not, but it fits the narrative. And, because you have to do everything yourself, I thought you might like this. And you did a wonderful job, an absolutely wonderful job. It was fun. And as I said on the podcast, you were 20% better than I thought you'd be, which is always a good thing.
It's some good feedback. I
but
appreciate
this is the soccer podcast, right? We're doing the soccer podcast today.
Stop calling it that.
It's got so many Yanks. I just figured,
Well, speaking of which, Owen Young in the chat, who's become a member today, so much appreciate that. Owen says the Yanks have got a very strong beer game, which I think is an insult to me and Adam personally. Speaking of which, Adam making his debut on the show. You may have seen him with me over on the football terrace. How are we doing, Adam?
Not too bad, thank you. Not too bad.
Good stuff. And you've got your own show as well, haven't you?
Yeah. So sometimes I'm on the football terrace with Terry. Other times just doing it with a bunch of friends at the Fifth Official on YouTube. So yeah, go and check that out.
Awesome stuff. We've got the man who can't stop uploading podcasts at the moment. It's John with the Miami Arsenal podcast. How you doing, John?
Great, thanks. Awesome. Super. I'm fantastic right now.
A long-awaited comeback is finally here.
It is. I was actually sitting and the thought now pops in, because you keep hounding me about it. It pops into my head at least once a day. As much as I try not to think about you, it just comes into my head. I can't help it.
Every morning I wake up and I refresh my phone to see if
just to see.
Yeah, to see if
notifications on his Twitter account just to see if something pops up.
I'm going to cry myself back to sleep when I see that nothing's there.
I'll tell you, I'm gonna do one this week. How about that? Just for you, Tom.
Could you I'm gonna clip that. So
all right, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen this week. I'm gonna do it. But doing great, doing real good. We obviously have Arsenal back.
Yes.
It's the way we want to play it, right? I just saw Adam's eyes wide, and obviously being facetious here. I mean, but look, we're going to Wembley, so there's something. We're probably going to lose, but we're there.
Oh, John.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't have confidence.
I know you weren't alive in 2017 when we last made the FA Cup semifinals, but had you been there, and paying attention.
I remember, and we had Alexis Sanchez on that team, and we had look. Here's the thing. I will get to it. I'm doing great. Thanks, Tom.
Drew hasn't gotten his big moment yet, so let's.
I'm doing great.
Finally getting to our last and by miserable meaning least. It's Drew. How are we doing, mate?
I don't know why everyone thinks I'm miserable.
Well, we recorded a podcast earlier today, and the first
Yeah.
comment we got was, "Why is Drew so miserable?" That was the first comment.
This is
I'm-
his natural
I'm-
resting smile face.
I'm just super monotone, and I think it comes across as me being miserable. Even when I'm happy, I sound like this. So there's no
I'm
avoiding
tempted
it.
to prove you wrong playing the start of the podcast we recorded earlier, for those that hadn't seen it, which was basically when I said, "How are you?" you just went, "Yeah." That's all you did. So I don't think people could be too wrong about that whatsoever.
Doesn't mean I'm miserable. It just means I'm,
You
I need
don't-
coffee.
you
See,
don't-
Mike knows. I need
You don't
coffee.
know Drew until Drew comes bounding around, down the bar to give you a big bear hug. I mean, that's the Drew that I know and love. So
My
Yeah.
friend.
this podcast version, you gotta get out there. Now we're not allowed to hug anybody anymore. So
No, can't.
I guess it's over.
Yeah. Right, let's kick on with things Arsenal-wise, because that's probably the longest time I've spent doing intros on a podcast in quite a while. Typical.
Welcome, Adam.
What has he got himself in for? So, obviously Arsenal have come through a game against Sheffield United in which they managed to win 2-1 right at the end with Sabah scoring. My reaction show was, it was funny because the reaction show I did straight after the game got so many people thinking, why is he so happy about this? But it was more relation to the fact that we won 2 games in a row that had sort of overawed me with pure pleasure. But Adam, on yesterday's show on the terrace, things were still fairly acrimonious, shall we say. How are you feeling after that win?
I think I've had time to digest it since, and the initial elation has definitely died down. I think over the past, since the restart, basically, I've slowly come to the realization that Arsenal are actually not that great. And it's not just like but the thing is, it's not just like a dip in the ocean. This is like
You didn't come to that realization in 2008.
I didn't, because I just thought this is a 1 season thing, maybe a 2 season thing. We'll be back. And ever since then, I've just kept telling myself, we're going to get back. It's all going to be all fine. And now I think I'm well aware that this is actually a long-term problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think since the matches since lockdown have kind of intensified that and made it clear. So yes, we have won 2 games on the bounce, and it's great that that's happened. Joe Willock has scored, and Nketiah scored a nice little striker's goal as well. But I just look at the situation we're in, and I'm like, how does it get better? How do we make this whole situation better? I really don't know.
Yeah, it's a big job. It's fair to say that Arteta's got, and we talked about this yesterday, saying about how like Arteta's job, and yet people are still calling for his head already. It's insane. I can't understand it whatsoever. He's not my manager, I think is the quote that's going around at the moment. But John, talk to me about sort of where, because for me, Arteta getting into an FA Cup semi-final,
It's great.
He's got a Sheffield United side that before the restart, I think we're 5th, 6th in the table, having an absolutely storming season. Yes, they've had struggles. Yes, they've struggled against the likes of Man United. They've had a couple of men sent off in John Egan, but it's still a big team. And I thought it was an okay performance against a side that have done exceptionally well so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's the FA Cup, right? Like I love that competition. I love this competition, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans have this competition close in their heart. Not just because we won it more than anyone, which is something that is significant. I feel like the FA Cup has kind of been this competition that maybe people don't give the love that it used to get, right? But it's still important. You still have teams like Norwich who can come in and do a job against a bigger side like United and almost do it in this regard. I think that United got very lucky with Maguire's last 118th minute, I think it was, that he came in and he scored to put him in the win, which is very unlucky for them. And now these are big sides there going into the semifinals and ultimately will be in the final. So in terms of Arteta and what he's done to get us here, I think it's great. And I'm not going to take that away from anything. I think we got extremely lucky to be where we are right now. And I think that a lot of decisions had to go our way. And this is a game where, little inches can be the determination between whether you're in the final, whether you're in the semifinal, or whether you're out of the competition. And in our case, offsides went our way that day, and we just happened to be in a situation where, I mean, I couldn't believe it. First of all, side note, I cannot believe how many times that ref blew the whistle in this match. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was like every other play, the whistle was getting blown. The second someone was even touched, the whistle was going down. I think it favored us more often than not, and especially the VAR. If I was a if I was a Sheffield fan, I'd be really upset about that result. But look, the rules of offsides are the rules of offsides, and this is a game of small margins or whatever the expression is. So we're there, and I'm happy about that. So I didn't think we were going to be in the semifinal of the FA Cup this season. I did not, and we're here, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably the best way to sum things up. It's a nice surprise to it. Before we move on, I'd love Mike's reaction that I heard when this came in.
We're rich. We're so rich.
Owen Young with a £30 donation. Thank you ever so much for that. He says, pubs open soon, Tom. You've kept me entertained throughout the lockdown. Have a few pints on me. And as Mike followed that up with saying, that's £6 each. We're rich. So,
look at us profiting off a win.
Profiting off a win. Yeah, there's no AFTV here.
Just profiting off a win.
Oh, dear.
Oh, my God.
Yours really for us to win.
That, for me, like that sort of thing is, I can't wait till everyone is over at some point. And to be fair, Owen was a previous guest on the show, and so therefore is invited to one of our meetups at some point when obviously Mike, Andrew, and John are somehow over in the UK at the same point, which seems to never line up. Drew never, Mike the odd month in the year, and John once so far. But I'm sure that we'll sort something out at some point in the near future. Fingers crossed if all of this blows over as quickly as possible. There's a good question, though, Mike, because you reacted quite negatively towards the Arteta comment a second ago. So I wanted to bring up this comment from Jeremiah, which is a fair comment. He says, Tom, if it's a behemoth of a job, then you need nothing short of a world-class coach. You cannot blame people for thinking someone who has never coached before isn't world-class. What do you make of that?
Who are the world-class coaches, and what teams have they coached with what kind of starting 11 and bench? If you're going to call Mourinho a world-class coach when he coached Inter and Real Madrid and Chelsea, I mean, look at who they're coaching. I mean, can you bring in a Carlo Ancelotti with a team like Everton's and expect them to automatically go up to the top? No, you're not going to see Carlo Ancelotti at Bayern. You're not going to see Carlo Ancelotti in his former teams because he doesn't have the manpower. So the idea of a world-class coach, you don't know whether it's more necessarily about the coaches or the players. I mean, there's certainly something to that. But, a year ago we were all aching to bring on people like Hasan Hutul and all these, other people that drew like in the middle of the night while he's sleeping. The young
Drew is doing right now.
The difference is, those guys do have some experience and they seem to be ready for the next step. But I mean, Mikel Arteta, look, I wasn't thrilled about when he was being rumored to take over for Arsene Wenger, and I think it's a good thing that he didn't at that time. But what do we got to lose at this point? And what has he done so far with the talent he has in front of him, with the fractured dressing room and the head cases and the fan-player relationships? What has he done since December 26th other than try to fix those things, to try to pull the crowd in, the fan base in, to try to rectify the things that are wrong with Xhaka, Mustafi, with others, and get maybe 6 or 7 clean sheets out of about 15 or 20 games? I mean, what else can you expect from somebody? Why not get behind him? And the second things go wrong, and this was my reaction, the second we lose to Manchester City and, God forbid, we lost to Brighton again out of a weird situation with coronavirus and 3 months off, people are already calling for his head. I mean, it's ridiculous. It just absolutely drove me crazy. I mean, I'm not saying he's the next coming of Arsene Wenger, but I'm not saying that he is either, because it's too early to tell.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree. It's so frustrating seeing the comments, and I know that for a lot of people, it's it is mostly the people that are on Twitter that didn't want Arteta at the start, feeling like there's some form of justification that things aren't going right straight away, which is insane to even consider at this point in time. But I get what Jeremiah is saying about it. You need a world-class coach for a really tough job. I think there's potential for Arteta to be a world-class coach in the future for sure. This is his first main job. It's a massive job. As you said, I think Mourinho, Guardiola, it doesn't matter what name you put into this job, they struggle with this situation.
How did Jurgen Klopp become a world-class coach?
Exactly.
That's
my exact point.
I mean, Pep Guardiola, okay, he kind of went from Barcelona B to Barcelona A and was off and running from there. But how did Jurgen Klopp become a world-class coach? How did, I could probably give a few other examples. How did Jose Mourinho become a world-class coach back when he was a world-class coach? He did it with a Porto team, and took them punching above their weight, like all of us do with our relative, lady friends. But you can't just bring in world-class coach to a team that is not world-class by any means at this point and expect miracles.
Yeah, it's that. Let's have a look what Chig, Gooner Eagle Eye says in the chat. He says, come on, Mike, any complex job like this should be given to an experienced person. You can say that about any job. We have so many crazy issues. I don't particularly blame Arteta, but this is mad. And what I'd say to that person is that I don't know how much you can measure. What can you measure in this short time? For me, what we've seen in the time that Arteta's, firstly, he's now taken us to an FA Cup semi-final, getting us past a really tough side of United. He's taken a player like Mustafi that was utterly berated by the entire fan base week in, week out, and turned into a player where I don't really see anyone criticising him right now. Guess what? That's because he's been improved by Mikel Arteta. David Luiz has continued making mistakes, and this is the one stick that you can, I feel, beat legitimately Arteta with, that he's committed David Luiz to another year after making these errors. I think that is a mistake on Arteta's part, because we're not going to sit here and be like, everything is fine, everything is all right, because we know it's not. But when you look at the situation that Mikel Arteta has been given, it's ridiculous to be criticising the situation under him. There are issues beyond that. I think his in-game management at times is flawed. We saw that in the Brighton game. But these are things that any coach will need to improve. Mike, you talked about how Mourinho took Porto on. Guardiola, I think, is an example that doesn't get brought up enough. Of the years that he had at Barcelona B, he took Barcelona B to a league title, which hasn't happened for Barcelona B whatsoever. And he gained that experience there and then took it forward into the seasons that he had with Barcelona and then Bayern Munich and then now Manchester City.
Feeder league.
Yeah, shut up. Jurgen Klopp is the best example, as Adam points out, because he came into a struggling Liverpool side, big issues that were going on there, and he's now transformed them into the club they are. You've got to give these people time. He hasn't even had a transfer window. He hasn't even had a proper pre-season with a squad yet. He hasn't been able to build the squad that he wants, and he's struggling. And this is a squad that we criticised continuously under Emery, and now under Arteta, we're suddenly criticising the manager. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Drew, you've not had a chance to have your say in this, so go for gold, fella.
I was just letting people dig their graves real quick, so that's okay. Also, Mike, next time I see you, you're going to get more than a bear hug. Might be like a bear punch, depending. For all the comments. No, I'm just kidding. But it means...
This will be Exhibit A.
Yeah, well, more like Exhibit AA. We've had more than a review before. No, for me, I think it's first of all, I think people are still overestimating the size of the Arsenal job right now. They're thinking of the job in terms of historically what the name of the club bears, and that's all well and good. But in actual footballing terms, the Arsenal job is not as big as fans want to be honest with themselves about currently. It really isn't. And you can remember back to the times where the fans were shouting, why didn't we get Pep? Why didn't we get Klopp? Like, we're not that desirable at the moment. And then Mike brings up a prime example of someone like Ancelotti. He didn't do too well at Bayern, and now he's at Everton, and Everton's below us on the table, and they've spent a considerable amount of money the last 2 seasons trying to build a squad, and, they have a negative goal difference. They're sitting in 12th or 13th place at the minute.
How happy are you about that, given how much stick you gave people who wanted Ancelotti?
You don't have to tell me how happy I am. I'm thrilled because and any person with a brain could have told you that just because a manager's experience doesn't mean they can come in and instantly everything's all hunky-dory and things just magically click. Managing a football team is not that simple. It really isn't. And So for Arteta, you have to look at it. If we're in the market for a long-term rebuild, where we want some semblance of stability and to avoid a track record that happened with United where it was a managerial merry-go-round, going with someone who is younger and hopefully more progressive as a manager who has a long-term vision, that's what you want right now. That's what the club needs, if anything. We don't want to go from one big name who maybe fails in 18 months and you go to the next one and then you go to the next one and then you're in a position that with United. And by extension, when you do that with managers, you do that with player personnel as well, because every manager is going to want their own type of players in. So every 18 months, you have a new manager. Every 18 months, you have to start to rebuild the squad again to the market. We can't even afford that, let alone have to worry about that kind of player turnover. There's a lot of different things and components that people aren't really considering with what comes along with it. And Arteta's learning on a job. And what frustrates me, and Mike's alluded to it, I think everyone here can agree, is pre-COVID, we only lost once in the league under Arteta in 9 outings. 4 wins, 4 draws, and a loss against Chelsea. We beat United. I don't see what the problem is. All of a sudden, COVID happens. Our momentum is absolutely in the tank, and you have to come back with the momentum against a Man City side under Pep, who's been under Pep for 3 years now. So they know exactly what's expected of them. There's no two ways about it. They know how they have to perform from the outset, even if they're not going to win the league. They need to play themselves into form so they can be ready to try to push for Champions League, right? So their expectations are a little bit higher, and these are all things that I don't think the fans consider. And I guess I could take people's example of, when you have a big job, you want a bigger name, or whatever Chig might have been saying. But again, that's kind of what brought me to my original point, is that we're not this massive club right now. You really have to be honest about that. Historically, sure, 3rd most titles in Premier League history or English history, all these things factor in, and that's all well and good. Most FA Cups, that's wonderful. But most players who have any amount of ambition for their career aren't going to look at a club and say, well, they used to win. That's where I want to go. That's not. Most of them aren't going to really say that. They have to have some sort of tie to the club, or as long as we're a step up for a lot of people, that's great. But, after that, you just have to be honest about where we're at right now. And I would rather target the long term, because I think that's the only way we're going to actually be able to survive. If we try to run with the bigger horses, we're going to get burnt every single season, and it's just going to exacerbate itself, and then we're completely screwed. So
it's going to come down to whether he gets backed or not. I mean, and yeah. with no Europe money, that's the scary thing. Liverpool and Chelsea both did it because they are addicted to winning, and this was a 1-year thing. But we're on a slow slide. So my concern is that ownership and the board don't back him the way he needs to be backed to get back, and then you can't really point the finger at Arteta, because you can't say Ancelotti or Mourinho would have come in and forced the board to do A, B, or C because of their pedigree. And that seems to be the narrative, is like, well, you got a coach like that, they're not going to stand for not being supported.
That's insanity to think that way.
Arteta's not going to stand for that either. If he doesn't get backed, he's going to leave.
Right. And I want to bring something up, because I want John to go on a classic John rant. I'm looking forward to it, which is it's not a bad thing, but you look at it and it's just. So you have the issue, like Mike just brought it up, about the manager being backed. And we can all agree that, you have to support a first-year manager if you want his project and the club's project by extension to really get off the ground. Yeah. But a lot of people are, and this brings up kind of the point about the brass, the leadership, Raul in particular, about how we're going to deal with transfers. And I wrote about it for Yama last week about I don't miss Emery. Let's make that clear. But I think the way we handled transfers when Emery was there, he said he wanted X, Y player, and the board was like, no, we're going to go for these players instead. That sort of almost is like a kind of a question mark moment. Is this going to be a continuous problem year in, year out? So I wanted to ask, I guess, the panel and you guys, do you think it's going to be possible for us to really be able to support Arteta? Not just that we're not going to make signings, because I think we will, but how much influence do we really see Arteta having in terms of, if he says, I need this player specifically, or this type of player, are you guys worried that we're not going to get Raul and the team behind him really on board with what the manager wants? Or is it always going to be what they want because they want to build the club's profile or whatever it might be? That's my question for you guys. And then feel free.
Do you want my take on it?
I do. I want everyone's
Right,
take.
yeah,
But let's start with Sean.
Yeah. So my take on it is that I think that it's really the time's going to tell on this one, and it's going to be a situation where we're looking at that where Arteta's going to come with a player, and we have no way of knowing right now how they're going to react to this because we haven't seen anything whatsoever related to a major transfer window and the board's intervention on it, or what they do, or whether they agree with him or not. We know now that Arteta doesn't have the final say on transfers, maybe like Wenger did back in his day. We know that now. But what we don't know, because it hasn't happened yet, what he's going to say, hey, I want XYZ player, and what the board's going to say in relation to that. It's just something that we absolutely have no idea. What I think is going to happen, I think it's going to come, and I mentioned this before, going to come down to how if it makes financial sense for them, especially now with the pandemic and everything like that. You know, they're really, really, really looking at this from a sustainable perspective as to whether they're going to keep this business up and how they can do to stay out of the red, especially with the pretty much 100% fact that we're not going to be in Europe next season. I would say it's 100% at this point. People could disagree. There's always a chance, but I don't think it's happening. In the league, at least. So for me, that's a big hit that they're taking financially, and they really need to weigh that against, trying to stay sustainable, especially considering the price of players in the Premier League. So we know they're not going to look, in my opinion, at English players. I think they're going to be looking at other players. So if he's saying, hey, look, I really want this, I want Zaha, for example, right? Let's say he says that. Incredible player, think would be amazing for us, I think that he's just a quality Premier League proven player. You could argue whether he's surplus requirements. I don't think a player like that's ever surplus to requirements on the team. He's always gonna be great. Now he says, all right, I want that player. Does the board support him? I don't think so. I don't think they go, yeah, let's go get Zaha. I think he's going to be way too expensive. And I think we already kind of crossed that bridge slightly before when we were trying to say, hey, can we bring this kind of player in? So I think that's a little bit of a hint as to how the board's going to treat this. I don't think that he's not going to get carte blanche, that's for sure. Because that's never how we've operated. Even with Wenger, that's never how we operated. And that was partially because Wenger was like, this socialistic model almost, where he would kind of say, look, I'm not gonna contribute to this overinflated prices in the Premier League. Yeah, okay, Mike, I agree. Yeah, we're gonna win the rest of our games. Fine. But even if we win the rest, all right. So let's say we're in Europe now. We have all this money. I still think that it would be irresponsible for us to all spend that in one place. So I think they're still going to need to be smart about their transfers. And I think that they're going to give him what he wants insofar as he can kind of say, listen, we need this type of player. And, we're going to utilize our scouting department, which is why they're there, for getting us names that would fit that profile, right? So we need an attacking winger, let's say, like a very pacey attacking winger that can beat other players. We're not going to look in the Premier League because it's going to be too expensive. So let's look in the German league. Let's look in the Italian league. Let's look in the Championship and try to get those players. And I think they're all going to work together. It's not going to be one player. What?
Look in the Austrian league.
Yeah, wherever, man. My point is that they're not that it's not going to be like a get me that player and then they go out and get him. I don't think that's going to happen. It's whether it should be that way. I don't know. Because look, Arteta, I think, is a great manager. Maybe I don't know whether he knows whether he could pick the right players for us. We have a scouting department for that reason. I would like to trust them to do their job.
We had a scouting department.
We had a scouting. All right, fine. But I mean, look, that's another aspect of it as well. I mean, is this a situation where Raul thinks he knows more than everyone else? Maybe. Barcelona sure hasn't been doing great. I mean, they're not doing too great, and they're in real trouble right now in terms of scouting. And they're about to send over basically a like for like player with Pjanic and to Juventus on an attacking player that is pretty much exactly the same, except he's like a decade younger. But anyway, sorry. My point is that I think that it's a little too early to tell whether they're going to do it. I have no idea because the reality is we have not seen a situation where we have a big transfer window and the board has to make a decision like that. So I'm looking forward to it. I think that we're going to go for younger players that we might not have known about, or maybe no one is not on anyone's radar. That's what I think.
I don't know where that myth comes from that Americans just love to hear the sound of their own voice.
I think if there's evidence of that,
I still don't know what Adam sounds like.
if there's evidence of that, I would say, go check the Gooner's pod.
Yeah. Go on, Adam. Talk to me about what you think about this Arteta situation.
Yeah, I think it's weird. I think almost immediately when Arteta became manager, there are a lot of influential Arsenal voices saying that he's a puppet. He's in the back pocket of the owners, and I thought that was a very strange sort of line of argument or opinion to have, because I hadn't seen any evidence to suggest that. So going back to I guess Drew's point about will Arteta be backed, about Mourinho and those types of managers coming in and saying, I want this player. If I don't get it, I'm going to put my foot down and we're going to have trouble. I don't really get where those types of opinions comes from, because I think there's always sort of a contest between manager and owner, and not every manager gets every player they want. Otherwise, Neymar would be going to Plymouth Argyle or something like that. So it's a bit strange on that front, but I think I agree with everyone. I don't really see Arteta being backed in everything that he wants. I think part of the reason we even went for him was because he's so good at coaching, and he's got all this stuff on his CV with the Manchester City players saying that he improved them bit by bit. So I think we'll very much look to get players that have, I guess, potential that can be tweaked and improved. And Arteta will have to try and get the best out of them. But yeah, I think this whole thing about him being a puppet, I don't see it. I don't have any evidence for it, or to say that he's more of a puppet than any other manager. I don't see it at all, really.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think there's some interesting chats going on in the chat, but specifically about Guendouzi and Ozil's situation. I don't want to hang up too much on that, but I do want to give it some attention because it's taken me ages to type out these messages on this awful laptop that I own. In terms of that situation, I feel like Arteta's handled Guendouzi and Ozil perfectly. There was an issue with their attitude and with how things are going on. He's omitted them from the team. They've not been in it, or they've been on the bench and haven't come on. I feel like he's handling... What's ironic is I see a lot of people who want Ozil gone criticising Arteta for how he's handling the Ozil situation. Because for me, he's doing exactly what people who want Ozil out, he's doing exactly what they want. He's completely shutting him out. He's completely shutting him out the team, frustrating him to the point where, fingers crossed, we can move him on. And I'm saying it fingers crossed, nothing to do with not liking the guy. I haven't particularly got a negative opinion around Ozil. I appreciate his quality. I wish he was more consistent, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is that 350 grand a week is a lot of money that could be used elsewhere. And only way to get him off the budget is to just get it into his head that Ozil, your time at Arsenal is probably done under Arteta. And you don't do that by parrying to his will and playing him in the odd FA Cup game, because that'll do for him. But if you just shut him out of the team completely, there might be a chance where he gets fed up with it and decides to move on. I personally don't think that'll happen, but this is the only way I can see Ozil being handled by Arteta in the correct way if he's not applying himself, and that is by not playing him. Same thing with Guendouzi. If Guendouzi wants to leave, you don't play him. If Guendouzi's got an attitude problem, you don't play him. He's 21 years old and he needs to grow up and he needs to learn what it's like to be a footballer at Arsenal, because he's not acting that way at the moment, and I feel that Arteta is handling that absolutely perfectly. So for me, that is fine. And there's no transfer window open. So there's no point people saying, why hasn't he sold him yet? Transfer window's not open. I understand that Chelsea have gone out and signed Werner and signed Ziyech, but it's a different scenario. Arsenal are looking to move players on. We've got a very, very hectic end to the season. I'm not sure Arsenal are going to be focusing too much on looking at the players they're going to sell. However, there is some news at the moment about a player that could be leaving, and that is our youngster Balogun. Now, this will divide the group, I know, because there's different views on this across it, which is great because we enjoy a debate over here. Drew, I'm going to start with you, mate, because I know that your point of view on it has been fairly vocal on social media today. Talk to me about your thoughts on Balogun and actually where your head's at regarding the situation.
I just feel like this is a totally normal happenstance. When you can't try to promote and say that you want the club to have a brilliant youth setup, but then also expect every youth player to have a career at Arsenal. That's not how the numbers fall. At any big club on the planet, they will have multiple decent to very good players in positions, and most of them will not stay at the club. Most of them either leave before they hit 19 or 20. Some of them leave when they hit 19 or 20, and some of them go on and do something. But the simple fact is, if we keep Oba and Lacazette, if they're still here next season, and Ketty is getting more time, Martinelli has shown he can play through the middle. You know, we don't know what we're going to do in the market. So at best, he's as going on being a 19-year-old. He's going to be 5th choice at the club at best. At worst, it's lower than that. So it's not just about us. It's why would he want to stay? And what came out earlier today, it said that, they were in contract negotiations for an extension, but that had an impasse, and now he's just going to be leaving the club or trying to move him on for money instead of letting him go for free after next year. That kind of shows that we at least had the onus to want to try to keep him. Whether they agreed or not on how the contract was structured is a different matter. The fact is we still made the attempt. So it's not like we just forgot about him and said, never mind. You guys can be on your merry way. And it's just, I just feel like we also have other priorities too. And right now, it seems like any fee we can get, any decent fee we can get for a player that we can get in will help us try to rebuild the actual first team right now. And as a player, when you're 18 or 19 years old, you need to be playing week in, week out. And a lot of people could have said you could have extended them and then loaned them out for 2 years, but eventually players just don't want to constantly be loaned out to a new club every year. That happened with Salah at Chelsea, De Bruyne at Chelsea as well. Eventually they got fed up with it and then they ended up leaving. And then they built their career somewhere else. And he's at an age now where, and a skill level where he can easily go to somewhere like Belgium or the Eredivisie in the Netherlands and still play for a good couple of years, have a good couple of seasons there, and then get another move to somewhere like France or Germany, depending. It's rightly or wrongly, we can kind of bemoan how the club may or may not have handled it, but fans forget that players have a say in their own career path. If he doesn't want to stay, there's nothing we can say to him that's going to make him want to stay. And then people go back to the Serge Gnabry incident, which flew me for a loop because that drove me absolutely nuts. They tried to invoke that and look at this scenario in the same way. That's not the same thing. So I just feel like it just is what it is. Not every player is going to be an Arsenal player for life. And I think a lot of our fans get attached to academy products because they want to see the recurring Cinderella story of, he came through the youth ranks and now he's playing for Arsenal. And I think that's been pretty ingrained in a lot of our fan base, particularly the generation that's just ahead of mine. So you have, people who are like Mike Sakes, for example, where they remember players coming through. I'm not calling you old. You're just older than me.
Oh, yes, I remember when...
You're just older than I am. So you'll more closely remember. You'll just more closely remember someone, like Rocky Rocastle, coming through. And people, that's why people, I think, got so attached to Jack Wilshere. In that same way. And I think it hit them really hard when it didn't work out for him. But I think they kind of always looking for that Cinderella story of he came through the youth ranks and he made it at the club and he spent his entire career at Arsenal. That'd be great. But in modern football, you have to look at the fact that there's such a business angle to it where, A, we get money back for him, and B, but he has the right to make up his own mind. If he doesn't want to be here, then let him go. And you can't blame the club for that either. So that's just my take. But
I think
sorry, I thought someone might go. So
yeah,
I
have a different take than you, and it matches seemingly many of the people in the chat. I know it isn't about, I'm envisioning and in love with the idea of Balogun being our starting number 9 2 years from now or 3 years from now. I don't know that he's got that in him, and I don't know that the traffic in front of him would allow that anyway. But I mean, this guy is a talent. He was born in New York City, by the way, Drew.
Mm-hmm. Fun fact.
Yeah, he was.
He calls it soccer just like you there.
Exactly. So 15 appearances, 10 goals, 4 assists, 8 secondary assists, and 142 tertiary assists.
Wow.
So he's got all the. No, I have no idea what. I don't count secondary or tertiary assists, but like the guy, it's financial management of an asset. And I hate to, again, if Arsenal's a business, then we got to look at this as a business. And every other club seems to get this, while we don't. I mean, what do you think that the salary or the wage packet that we're offering him is? I mean, does anyone think that it's more than 5 or 10? I mean, because Saka's on 3, so are we talking about the difference between 3 or 5 or 10? A deal that's like straight up versus performance based? Because I know there's been a lot of talk about the performance-based aspect of it, which I think is a problem. But I mean, at this point, clearly the kid wants to play. He can play. He's not going to play in the U23s, but why don't we just take a flyer on the guy, sign him to $8 or $10 grand a week, for a couple of years, loan him out, put on an add-on and a sell-on fee if we end up selling him eventually. But if you give him $10,000 a week for 2 years, that's like $700,000. Loan him to Charlton or to AZ or to like Dusseldorf or something like that. And if he impresses, then we have a player that we can bring back into our squad if we need to. Or we can sell for maybe 10, 15, or 20 million instead of 2 or 3, which is probably what we're looking to sell him at right now. And, I know that may or may not work out, but the risk is low. You're spending $700,000 over 2 years in salary for someone that might never play a game for Arsenal, but you're looking at growing an asset. Instead of selling low like we always do and buying high like we always do, maybe start, doing things the Chelsea way without all the loan chicanery of doing it for 500,000 players. Do it for a guy like Balogun who has promise, and you sell him on, and that's guaranteed money, Tom. And I just think we too frequently don't try to maximize the value of our assets. If we don't see them in our plans, it's like get rid, and we do it at the absolute worst, least marketable times, and that's what we just haven't learned. I don't get it.
John?
Yeah, really quick. So one thing that Drew kind of touched on, but I think that Mike didn't as much, though I do agree with the way Mike looks at it in the sense that that's the way I believe the club is looking at this. For them, it's not, for them, it's dollars and cents, in my opinion. And I think that the club does look at this as business. But one thing that wasn't kind of touched on as much in that was what he wants to do, what the player wants to do. And I think well, I know you don't, but I think he does. And I think that, so when Drew kind of touched on this was, look, you're staring down Eddie, who's clearly, has more of a place at this club than you do right now, at least in terms of what's being played. You have Martinelli, arguably the same, injuries aside or whatever. Lacazette and Aubameyang right now. Now you can, maybe one of those will leave in a year or so. He's 18 years old. He can get a good fee from him right now, I think, and he can at least play more. I think you have to look at it from his perspective as well. And I think that was something that Drew mentioned that I agree with, though I do think that I think he's a great player and I would like to see him stay. I mean, is he looking at this going, I don't know if I'm going to be playing anytime soon. And I want to play, and I think I could at least start somewhere, and I can get my profile up rather than just playing in the youth. And I think that's kind of what Drew was touching on. And as much as you want to look at it from dollars and cents, you got to look at it from, this is a player who wants to play football and wants to play it at a top level. I would imagine.
Well, he's never been loaned before, so why not loan him to someplace where he can play a week in and week out?
And Drew touched on that when he was saying, like, look, sometimes players don't want to loan. Sometimes they want to, they want to start somewhere. And I don't know if that's the case right now. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. It might be a case where we're really trying to get this deal done, but maybe the player just doesn't want to. And I don't know.
Go on. I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think that when you're looking at this kind of a deal, as much as it might make sense from a financial perspective, we shouldn't say, oh, it's not working because we just couldn't get the dollars and cents right. It might just be that we can't come to an agreement regarding the future or what the player wants as well, because that's a factor.
Well, this sets the precedent for every player that might have other people in front of him to just get up and leave as soon as they reach 18 or 19, and that's not a good sign either.
I think that's always kind of been a precedent, though. I think that when a player doesn't have room in the squad, they'll either go for a loan until they've proven themselves, or they'll ask to be moved. They're not just going to sit and languish if they're not playing. Although I agree with you, I think that it's a dangerous situation. But right now, where we are as a club, I think he's thinking like, look, it was now or never for me to get into the squad like Eddie did or like Martinelli did. And I'm not there right now. So, maybe it's a little bit of restlessness.
I think what kind of hurts is that we're seeing this is definitely a chance for youth to get time in the team. So I know you guys have said that he might be like fifth choice. I'm sure Drew even said at worst like seventh. But I don't think that would happen. I feel as though Arteta knows the situation and the hand that he's been dealt. He doesn't have that much money. We've got an aging and rusty lacquer. Aubameyang, who's probably on his way out anyway. I don't see a problem with him competing for places with Eddie and Nketiah. I think that's actually a really good thing. So yeah, I think I would probably put the charm offensive on if I was, I don't know, Arteta or whoever's handling the contract. And I get that there are probably personal terms which probably, have made the deal go a little bit sour. But I'd probably even lie. At this point, I would probably lie to him and say, you will get the minutes that you want, even if it doesn't happen. Because I don't think we can afford to be letting talents like him go. I've seen so many highlight reels from him today. And I'm saying, look at what this guy can do, and he's young. So I would want to see him progress at Arsenal, and I get that there are other factors at play, but right now I think we need all the talent that we can get. Although I do recognize that you guys were right in saying that not all talent make it through, but we've lost enough, and I'm just tired of seeing it happen, and I kind of want to put an end to it.
Just real fast. That's a great point. No, just let me. No, it's not your show. Get out. I'm just kidding.
I'm trying to help Adam because Adam's got to shoot off. But then
yeah.
So, Adam, thank you very much for coming on this evening, mate. Really appreciate it. Tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at TFO Show. It's right there. Or on YouTube, The Fifth Official. So yeah, take that.
Thank you very much for your time, Adam. Make sure you guys follow Adam on Twitter.
Pleasure to meet you, mate.
See you later.
Now we can get a word in edgewise.
Oh, shut up.
I feel awful, man. That was the least balanced panel I've ever seen.
Yeah, I felt bad.
It was Adam versus you.
To the extent that I'm responsible for that, I am very sorry, Adam, because look.
I genuinely I side with both of it because I think that Andrew, I'll let you make your point. Actually, no, I won't. I don't care. I think when you look at both sides of it, I see the argument in that he's a young guy. He's 19 years of age now, and that is the age. And we talked about this earlier on, Drew, on the podcast. Saying at 19 years of age, if you're in the Eredivisie and you're at a club at 19 years of age, then you're either in the first team or you're going to leave because you're going to get loaned out indefinitely to different clubs because you need to be playing. Bottom line. And if Balogun's not playing in a senior side at 19 years of age, he's not going to be developing at the rate that he needs to be developing at. So I have complete sympathy with him wanting to leave. And in my view of it, we don't know what's going on ultimately. It could be down to the club not wanting to pay him the money that he wants. It could be the fact that he's told the club that I want to be playing full time. The club said we can't accommodate you in that sense because we've got so many options already. So I don't think you can point the finger at the club or at the player at the moment until we get the full story.
What's wrong with we'll pay you 10 grand a week? I assume that he's not asking for more than that. If he's asking for more than that, it's a different story. We'll pay you 10, 12 grand a week. We will loan you for one season to some place where they will, agree that as long as you're healthy, they're going to give you playing time if it makes sense. And if you're not happy a year from now, we will sell you on. But at least we're selling him on with 3 years left on his contract instead of less than one. It just seems like, he's 19. He may be a late bloomer. Ian Wright. I am saying that the Balogun is better than Ian Wright. That's what I'm here to say. But it just seems like mismanagement to just at the first opportunity for him to leave say when the guy's never played a minute of top flight or first team football for any team to just let him go.
But how do you know we didn't say that?
Yeah, that's my question. Yes,
my question.
I don't, but I'd like to find that out.
That's not good enough, Mike. You should
call my people.
Or
we need Michael's expert investigative journalism to figure
Here's something. Yeah, exactly.
I have the angles right to the top. I'm gonna go there and find out.
And here's something we probably don't want to hear. But what if we were he was all right, and this is speculation, most of this. If he was hey. I don't buy into what we're doing in this club.
Or, hey, the little boy in me always wanted to play for Red Bull Salzburg.
Or whatever. But he goes, okay, this is where we see you. This is where we think that you're going to fit into this. And this is what we're doing with this club going forward. Why you should sign it. Because he's look, I'm young. Why am I going to say, why? That's awesome.
I think you should give him 30 quid for that comment, Tom.
Yeah.
Yes. Your money's going to Ariad. That's.
I forgot what I was saying. Whatever.
No, but for me, there's two things. You can't automatically just flat out blame the club and say it's the club's mismanagement fault as to why he's leaving, because we don't have details. And I agree. I think we all agree that, and you just said it, John, that it's all pure speculation, right? So if and when it comes out, if Warren Ornigal wants to give us the full details at some point, we'll figure it out, and then there we go. But I just feel like we just can't. And I say this almost every show that I'm on. We are such a reactionary fan base. A, it drives me up the fucking wall. But B, you can't react about something. Sorry, too bad. Once a show, you can't just react to things when you don't have all the facts. We don't really know what's going on, but the facts we do have is we can look at the team, and unless for some strange reason, over the next 12 months we sold both Aubameyang and Lacazette, he's never going to play. As it is, and Nketiah. We have to.
How do you drop Eddie? How do you drop Eddie right now?
And I think Chig just said it before. He said, "Well, why is Eddie getting time and not him?" I promise you, the coaches think Eddie's further along this development, which is why he's getting time in the first team and Balogun isn't.
And then when Martinelli's fit, Martinelli's fit, do you not play Martinelli? I mean, he's been one of our best, most prolific scorers. Like every time he plays, he scores a goal, and they're great goals. So when he's fit, does he not play?
I'm not saying he could ever play for us. I'm saying that we're buying high and selling low with people, and I think there's a trend and a way of starting to kind of change your policies. And again, it takes two to tango. I'm not denying that. We don't know what's going on, and I'm not denying that. I don't care what's going on because we're here to make our opinions. But I think the moral of this entire story is that Eddie Nketiah is going to make it at Arsenal.
We don't even know that.
That was for everyone listening. That had nothing to do with it. That was just a dig at Tom. I
think everyone listening knows that that's a dig at Tom.
That was a dig at Tom. If you don't know, now you do. That was the dig at Tom.
If you don't know, now you know.
Now you know.
To God, and what's funny is that Mike is secretly fuming in our group chat because I've managed to turn this around on him.
You haven't turned anything around on him. This guy has not turned a thing around on anybody.
And also think of the Daniel Malin issue when he nailed on and came out and said that either I'm going to start playing now or I want out. How do we know that Balogun didn't say something very similar and that's why he wants out? We don't know that. And when you're that good at that young of an age, a lot of times, if you work with players, a lot of times they're supremely confident in their abilities to make it somewhere. So we can't rule out that he's just said, unless I'm in the first team starting next season, I don't want to stay at the club. It's not even about starting for Arsenal. If he's not going to get any appearances from the bench, if he's not going to get any Europa League time for Arsenal, maybe he just wants to leave. I really don't think that I think fans are just making a gigantic meal out of something that there's no meal to be had.
There's not enough information, at least. There's always a meal to be had, but it's not always a good
Mike would know that better than most.
That's what I'm saying. I teed you up, set you up with that one, and John didn't even get it.
I think John was thinking about it. John went the route of he's being polite.
I was being very polite about it. Drew clearly does not care.
I was going to say though, if this happened, if the Balogun situation was, say, a few years back, before the Gnabry situation, before the Marlon situation, before we've seen players leave and go off and do great things, do you think the outrage would be as intense it has been? Because I don't think it would.
It's like post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, I think people are panicking so much after seeing Marlon leave and after Gnabry go off and succeed, when at the time people were laughing non-stop about his loan deal completely faltering at West Brom.
When you see something that consistently you keep seeing things that suck, you want to stop doing the things that suck. I think that's why.
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that this is ultimately going to boil down to us not knowing what the real reason is. We can speculate all you like the live long day about what the reasons are behind him wanting to go or why we've not re-signed him. My personal feeling is that we can't offer him enough playing time that he wants. That's where I can't see it being financial. The loan situation is the counter argument to that. I mean, as I said before, some players just don't want to be loaned. Some players want to be at a club that they're owned by and being the main man there, even at an early age. Because we're seeing so many young players across the world, be it Kylian Mbappe, be it Jadon Sancho, that have come through at a young age and absolutely smashed it. And I'm not saying Balogun's at that level.
You've got to put a buyback clause. Then you have to put a buyback clause.
I'm in 100% agreement with the buyback.
7 million.
Yeah, you might not get that. Interestingly, though, out of all of you, when we effectively sell him, what kind of fee do you reckon we're going to get from a 19-year-old that's never played first team football but is smashing it in the under 23s? What do you think we would get?
2.1 with add-ons, making it 2.15.
Yeah, no, I mean, probably roughly similar. You can't. I mean, there's nothing to really go on. Potential is only amounts to so much in terms of market value. I mean, you could look up maybe what its market value is.
Yeah, but you also consider in an English club might pay a good amount for him.
Yeah.
It all comes down to demand of him. And look, you look at like clubs like Newcastle, who might come into some money soon. You don't know what they're going to start throwing around into who, or what their plans are going to be when they're starting to do their thing, which I don't want to even think about. But but that's another story. But look, you don't know what kind of demand is going to start flooding around. So it's hard to make. Well, you could look at what we've done in the past and what his.
How much did we sell Ren Adelaide for? 3?
Yeah, what did Jeff go for?
3, and then the next time he was sold,
but he got first team. He got
minutes
for the first
though,
team.
exactly.
So there's a qualitative difference between that. But I see what you're saying. Look, we've had comparable players. The question is, I don't think there's been one that just hasn't gotten the minutes, and I think that might be the issue. He's going like, look, I want to go somewhere. I'm not getting any minutes here, and it doesn't look like I'm going to get it anytime soon. And then how can you really? I can't really fault him for wanting to leave after that. But at the same time, I could be upset that we don't keep a player who looks like they have a lot of potential. It's kind of a double-edged sword. It's like bittersweet, because the reason he doesn't have all that playing time is because we have these young players that are coming through and doing a really good job. So, I
don't know if it's true or not, but I'm seeing that we turned down $5 million from Brentford for him in January. Which, if that's true, that should set the floor for what we sell him for now. But with us, you never know.
You never know. The other thing is,
we'll take $2 million in 27 installments.
Well, think of it this way: he's a part of the same client. He's part of the same group as Sancho, Iwobi, Saka, Cantwell, Reece Nelson, Eddie Nketiah. So, I mean, the majority of those are English young players that have promise. So, it's likely that if we sell him, I think he'll probably just end up staying in England in some capacity. Going to someone like Brentford makes sense because they're a club that operates on a budget, but they also run heavily off of stat analysis. So if they look at him at the under-23 level and they see numbers that are befitting of what they want to build, maybe that's why they're willing to drop $5 million on a player who really has no experience at all. So it really all depends. But I do agree with you guys in general that if we're going to sell him back, you need a buyback clause. You have to, because if his level of ability is already apparent at that level, you want to be able to have that option in 3 years' time, 4 years' time. Lacazette and Aubameyang are probably done. We don't know what happened with Nketiah. He might not want to come back, but at least we have the option to say we can speak to you.
How they work. If you pay the buyback clause, do they have to return, or is it completely?
No, I think they can't. They can't deny you. They can't deny you. You have first rights, and you're allowed
first right
to
of refusal. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the player ultimately has the decision. Obviously,
he does. But the club can't say no. The club is bound by that contract that says we have to accept this fee, and now you can speak to him. That's.
Because the Morata situation when he was at Juve, when Real Madrid had the buyback clause, when Chelsea wanted to buy him, Juventus were happy to sell him, but obviously I think Morata just got bought back by Real, and then Chelsea bought him off them, if my memory serves me correctly. But it's a weird situation in that sense, because I feel that like if we do insert a buyback clause into it, then if he moves on, because I can only see him moving on to another top club's academy with possibly the thought of getting into their first team much sooner. I can't see him going to a lesser club like in the Championship straight away. Like for me, I can't see it. I think he would go to another big club because he's got that good of a record in the youth.
Why? What other big clubs have seventh choice center forwards that are gonna make a name for themselves rather than being people being inserted in front of them from big money purchases?
No, I don't think Prem. I'm thinking abroad. I think that these young English guys are looking what's going on in the likes of Germany, and they're seeing these young guys like Jadon Sancho and seeing how well they're doing at such a young age and being picked at such a young age, and seeing the opportunity that they could go to a massive club in another country.
You don't even have to go to Germany. He's probably looking at Eddie. He's probably looking at Saka. He's these guys that he played with, and now he's going, look, I played with them. I'm doing just as good as they were at that time. Why am I not getting the chance that they are? And there might be a little bit of that going on. I mean, we like to think that these players are making completely, unemotional decisions, but that's just not the case. I mean, there might be a little bit of jealousy there as to, his people that he was playing with and now that are doing, much bigger things than he is right now. That's got to be a little bit of a, I don't want to get too psychological about it, but I mean, I think you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Let's move on to the final part of the show, which is, I hope everyone's okay staying on a little bit longer than usual because I'm having a lot of fun on this one, it's fair to say. This is one of our best shows. And thinking about the transfer, I mean, surprising considering the lineup we've got.
It's 1/4 of it.
But when you're talking about like the transfer links, that was kind of the last thing because the links I'm seeing are so strange at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're being linked to young, wide players quite consistent. Obviously, Jobberslai came up, and I have to get a mention of him every show. I wish I could get one as often as Asensio, but it's just not possible these days. And then we're getting linked to this guy in Sporting Lisbon, Jolson 17-year-old. Sporting Lisbon want to increase his contract to 100 million. And we're getting linked to Enis Bardi, Levante, who's a 24-year-old.
Have you done those pods yet?
What's that?
Have you done those pods yet?
Have I done the tactical breakdowns on them yet?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're actually linked with these people. I think you're just linking us with these people. You're teaming up with Indy. You're teaming up with Indy Kalia in order to create new content. You're teaming up with Moley and Jerby in order to create new content for your channel, and I can't blame you for that.
No, I'm seeing the links. Like, that's all I'm talking about. As soon as I see the links on Twitter, I'm hitting up the people. I'm texting Oliver Zeziger saying, "Do you know someone who knows?" Straight away as soon as I hear something. But the links are strange. Why do you think we're going for wide attacking players so heavily?
Because we're Arsenal.
Strange because the players though they're not like small fees. Jobberslai is 25 million, Enis Bardi is going to be looking at 20+ million. You're looking at Gelson Fernandez, who's arguably I think it's a 41 million euro buyout clause that they want to raise to 100 million. These aren't cheap, and we don't seem to have the money. Why are Arsenal, without using the answer because we're Arsenal, why are Arsenal targeting these players? Any of you feel free to chip in on this one.
Because we're Arsenal.
I'm going to say two things because I don't know anything about them. The two words I have to say is we're not.
Right, okay. But
okay.
It's just
that's that.
We're not targeting these people.
Smoke without fire.
We're not targeting them until we are. How about that for we're 28 until they're 29.
Honestly, just let me speak.
It's all clickbait. Not you.
No. It's just like when you there's no smoke without fire in the sense that we're being linked with all these players of a similar position is the point that I'm trying to get across.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that we're getting linked in that area? That it seems like our focus should be on midfield firstly.
For the last 5-6 years, it should have been that.
Why do you continue to blame the board? Blame the scouting system? Do you blame the head of football? Where does the blame lie?
I think it's easy to manufacture. I'm not going to say fake news because Christ's sake, the connotation with that term right now when you're an American drives me nuts. But when you see the contractual issue with Oba and he might leave and he's been playing on the left, Saka, same thing. We don't know if he was going to get signed on yet. He's playing on the left. So I think the automatic assumption by the press is just to create some link of us going after a left-sided player. Now, I think the Szoboszlai rumors are actually relatively correct. I think it's us and Milan are actually really trying to go in for him. But I think with him,
are we back in that? I thought we had lost that one.
No. He's not. He didn't go to Milan yet. I just think Milan is ahead in the discussions. But I do think our interest is actually credible. But
there's still a chance, Tom.
But I think if you look at him, I think you're thinking about a player who would be shifted back to the middle. He wouldn't be used on the left. But that to me, you can X out that rumor. For the other ones, I'm with John because it's Arsenal and we can't seem to target things correctly like we need to.
It's unbelievable. It's like spectacular, our ability to not actually focus on areas that we so obviously need. It's unbelievable.
The one thing I will say is that rumor today about Wout Weghorst from Wolfsburg, he's the kind of center forward that you would assume Arteta wants because Arteta's been using Nketiah and Lacazette and shifting over left because he wants a center forward that can hold play up and combine and bring people into play, that kind of thing. and he's that kind of center forward. So that link actually made a lot of sense. But even still, that still shouldn't even be the priority. The priority should be and only should be the center of the park, period. And the discussion, I don't understand why we're focused on anything else. And I think we could all collectively agree that if we didn't end up buying a central player this summer, our heads would explode in one big unison, just Thanos moment. Like the whole fan base would fucking go up in smoke. Like it'd be so frustrating if it happened. So yes, too. I'm sorry. That was just like a Freudian tongue of the, it's fine.
Freudian tongue in the what?
Yeah, so the time. So bad.
I just have to profess my love for Mike Hernandez. By the way, he always knows what to say, and
for Asensio,
quality individual. Met him, enjoys jazz. He's very romantic, and
hey, what did you get up to, son?
He loves.
So going back to what Drew was saying, I agree with Drew on this one, and that Wolfsburg link was pretty cool. I thought it would be an interesting kind of a signing to make. We definitely need someone, especially if the rumors regarding Aubameyang maybe leaving are true, and seeing Lacazette struggling right now. A player like that would be an interesting one, but it is a weird one.
To losing their minds, how would the fan base react if we signed him?
It would be very weird. It would be a very weird. I'm looking at this independent of what the fan base would think about it, and kind of just what I would think about it. It's definitely a weird move, and all these links to these attacking wide players are also weird. For the reasons that Drew, I think, eloquently put forward, they're very weird.
I don't believe any of these rumors until we put pen to paper with Jan Mavila.
I don't believe it until the Gooners pod tweets it out with him holding an Arden shirt.
Look, we got we know, and this is just to sell papers and clicks. I mean, and I'm not saying. I mean, look, it's for you guys. It's food and energy and it's well spent by you guys. Kind of analyzing and breaking down for people who enjoy your content. All these different rumors. I think the generation of the rumors, which is not what you guys are doing. You guys are talking about the rumors that are already generated. The generation of these rumors is simply to create noise. And at this point, where teams don't even know whether they're going to be in Europe, what they're going to be in Europe, what kind of money they're going to have, who they're going to sell on. I mean, 99% of these rumors are to me, I got better things to do.
Bearded Gooner actually just brings up a good point in the chat. Who are these players' agents? That's actually it'd be an interesting question to look.
Yeah.
The fact that matters, and it does. The fact that is a sad thing.
It does matter, and it is sad.
Joseph Fernandez's agent is Kia Drabchin, so there's your link for that. Which is cool. I'll text my mate Jose Miguel, who's come on the show a couple of times to do tactical breakdowns, who lives in Lisbon, and he said the guy is amazing. He said, but you can't see him leaving for less than 40 million quid. He said he hasn't heard any links either in Lisbon. So take that with a pinch of salt. That probably falls into Mike's category of just a load of BS, effectively. So yeah, Ariane, who provided us with easily the comment of the show earlier on, it's fair to say, has dropped in a nice super chat. Thank you all so much. I'll pay for Mike's fee this evening. It says, I feel like people are underestimating how poor we are in terms of creating chances and creativity. A creative player would do as well as a defensive option.
I don't accept Canadian money. I'm actually considering moving to Canada based on what's been going on.
I think though, creatively, that's sort of being built up by Saka for me. Saka is that guy that is creating enough for us right now, and is going to develop into a creative force in this side. Because if we focus on how Liverpool look with their midfield isn't playing with a number 10 in behind the front line. It's playing with two number 8s effectively, and then a CDM behind them, and it's worked perfectly. I know it's very different in terms of the quality that they've got compared to us. But when they've got enough creative players in terms of their fullbacks, which I feel that we have got in Tierney, definitely on that side, I think the right back certainly need to look at in terms of creativity and how consistent Bellerin's been. But then you've got the creative sides in Sane and Sane. I've combined them together in Salah and Mane. Stop shaking your head at me. When creativity with those guys in wide areas, you don't necessarily need the creativity coming from a central place. As long as you've got the central place being the cover for your defence, and you've got enough creativity coming from wide areas where, let's be honest, it's most effective to be creative, because through the centre of the pitch is the hardest place to create the chances, because there's just simply more things in the way of stopping it. You have the creativity of the wide areas with Saka, with Pepe, and you can say Pepe isn't a creative player because he's got as many assists as he got goals this season. And for me, that's the way that we need to start playing. We need to play with a Liverpool-style midfield with 2 number 8s and a player in behind. I still think Xhaka has a place in this team. You see how important that he is to this club, and I say it every single show that we're on. And if we were to sign a transformative midfielder like Thomas Partey, if we were to sign a transformative young player like a Szoboszlai, that even adds more creativity than I was even talking about to the midfield. So for me, a midfield of Xhaka, Partey and Szoboszlai is for me dream scenario.
Yep. The thing with the midfield for me, and I know John was going to say something, so I'll be very, very, very brief, the most brief I've ever been. As long as you have someone, as long as you have someone in midfield who can bypass the press, that's all you need in terms of creativity. You don't need a number 10 type player, and that's why you see Kevin De Bruyne's role completely shift at City, because he was a number 10. Yep. He's not even close to that anymore. That's all you need, and with Granit Xhaka, that's what you have.
Exactly.
So that's why it's so important. So and like Tom said, if you get that balance right around him, you have all you need right there. So yeah, for me, that's all you need for balance, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, John, did you want to come in on that?
No, I think that he hit the nail on the head on that one, and I know. Look, you were trying to tee that up for me, but I agree, and I've said that before, especially with Xhaka, and this was when everyone was like, "Oh, he's terrible. He's terrible." I think that he was really painted poorly by the mismanagement he had with Emery, and I think that like towards the end of the Wenger era, it definitely wasn't good. But in terms of the way that we like to play, he is absolutely critical, and that midfield that would be ideal for me. That would be that would be great. We're going to see. If we get that midfield, you're going to see the way that we attack, transform, and you're going to see that we keep the ball a lot more. And because of that, we're not going to be defending as much. It's a fact.
Yeah, I agree. Right, let's move on to the final part of the show, which is looking ahead to the next game, which is Norwich, which, if you've looked at how they played against Man United, is not going to be an easy game for sure. They have got plenty of really good players, it's fair to say, and they gave us a good game earlier on in the season as well. I mean, Todd Cantwell's brilliant goal against United. They were so unlucky not to get to a penalty shootout, which they would have won, because Tim Krul in a penalty shootout is just unbelievable. And honestly, one of the best times I've had this season was watching him absolutely boss Spurs in that penalty shootout earlier on. But this is a league game, so we're not going to have to worry too much about that. But we do love giving away penalties, so we might have to. Drew, I'm going to come to you first, mate. Talk to me about a prediction for this game, son.
I think we'll be okay. I know home form can be patchy at times, but I think we should be okay. I think getting that FA Cup win is a huge boost of confidence, and for me, that's really important. I mean, I'd have a different opinion if we got dumped out of the cup. I think that may have hit a couple players hard, but you can't forget that Norwich still has their lives to play for. They're not guaranteed to get relegated. They're only 6 points out of being safe, so they have it all. They still want. I'm sure they're going to want to bounce back after a good performance against United. I don't know whoever watched it, but they actually did play quite well. They do have some players who can cause problems, like Buendia is one of those examples. Cantwell is pretty solid. They've got some pace with attacking fullbacks with Max Aarons and the like. So it'll be tricky, but I think we'll be okay. I'll go with 3-1. Actually, I think we'll have a good performance from our side as well. So.
I can't come to John now because I know Drew's covered everything he was going to say. So, go on, John.
He didn't actually, but almost. Hey, look, what can I say? Great minds, I guess. Listen, the thing that I have, and I mentioned it with Brighton, or rather with Sheffield, but it didn't pan out. It almost panned out, to be fair. Was that Sheffield was struggling coming into that game that we had, and we have this uncanny ability to make a team that's struggling actually, look better. But for some very close decisions, I think that we would have done just that. So this is kind of the same thing going on with Norwich right now, that they've lost every single game since they've been back. Everton, they lost. I think they've lost against United. They lost their first game. I forget, Southampton, I think they might have played. I don't remember exactly who they played initially, but every game since the break, they've lost. And Arsenal have this awesome ability to get the teams back on track. And I would say that's, it's like one of those things where it doesn't happen every single time, and it's like a gambler's fallacy. But the reality is, it's pretty damn certain that we do that, and we make a team that's struggling or a player that's struggling do a lot better than they normally do, or come in and actually put in a shift. So I'm always concerned about that when I hear that we're about to play a team hasn't been doing so well, and that's the case here as well. That being said, we are on a little bit of a roll, 2 consecutive away wins. We're going to be playing at home for the first time since this break. I don't know how much of an impact that'll have given there's no fans there, but we'll see. It should be interesting to see that going down. I think Drew touched on the points I was going to make around the players, that they have some difficult players, and obviously defensively with their goalkeeper, he's a great player. So I think that if we're going to win this one, we need to really create more chances than we have been recently. I think that we're starting to see the trend towards that a little bit more. It's not so much of us conceding as many chances, because I think we've been better with that ever since Arteta took over. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for us.
Nice. Mike?
2 things. One is they're missing one of their center backs, correct? Red card over the weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a red card.
All right. So that's good. Secondly, I love how Tom mentions that because we like to concede penalties, Tim Krul being their keeper is going to make an impact. That's not how penalties work. But we should, by all accounts, we should win this game. The trend, the coming home, the advantage of their defense being weaker than it would otherwise be. But we are the contrarian team. When things are at their worst, like they were last week, all of a sudden we pull 2 wins away from home, including a clean sheet. And things seem to be going great. And we have a slam dunk, to use an American phrase, in front of us.
Go for that.
We tend to not do so well. I could see this being a 0-0. I could see this being a 1-1. I must have missed something that was said there. But I do think that we're the better team at this point, but I'm not prepared to call a win for us, just because I think that's bad luck. I will be wearing this shirt though, and I switched to this shirt for the Southampton game with the collar so that I could wear it to work, because this is much more formal this way. What?
Who's on the back?
Lacazette actually is on the back.
Okay.
I'm not going to turn around and show you because I'm incapable of turning around. But
what happened with that?
What this? Oh, shoddy quality Puma. It started to peel off, so I just decided to make it, complete. And this is the look that I'm going with. This is what I have.
We're losing a game, and he's got angry, and he's just sitting there scratching away at his flying.
I was like a dog, like trying to get into the house, but look, it worked. Because of this shirt, we've won 2 in a row. I will be wearing this shirt again on Wednesday, and so bank it. 2-0 to the Arsenal.
No, yeah, brilliant stuff. Thank you ever so much, Billy Gooner, for the donation. He's really enjoyed the show, and we really appreciate that. Mate.
He's got one of his own, I believe, as well. So
yes,
he's just paid $4 for a good plug. Go on YouTube. Bearded, hook me up. I'd like to come on your show sometime.
So let's go through some of your predictions in the chat. Forgive me, I'm not going to put them up on the screen because my laptop is just being ridiculously slow tonight, so I'm going to read them out on my phone. Conor McGregor, thank you ever so much for tuning in, mate. 6-5 Arsenal is going for. What a game.
Got nothing else to do at this point.
No, he doesn't, to be fair. Rodney says 3-0 Arsenal. Archie says 3-0. Daniel Ogbonya, I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong, mate, says 3-1 Arsenal. Ogbonya, isn't that a player?
Yes.
It's spelled completely differently, in fact. Bulgarian Gooner, 2-0. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Mancunian Red MUFT says Man United rested 8 players against our first 11. We would have turned them over in the first half.
Yeah, right.
Very, very confident.
Yeah, right.
Arsenal. Billy Gooner says 2-0 Arsenal against Norwich. Rodney says Alba is due a goal, 100%. GG, which hopefully isn't the missus watching the podcast, says 2-0 Arsenal. Pepe and Alba. If she was, she wouldn't predict a win, that's for sure. Mike Hernandez.
She's probably in bed like the last time I saw her.
Oh, for goodness sake, you're not going to let that go. I'm never answering a FaceTime from you that early in the morning ever again.
I think any FaceTime that you answer from him is always risky.
I don't know. I've received the odd FaceTimes from Tom walking home from the pub and such. So
yes,
you know,
have to be fair.
we have an agreement where we pick up each other's FaceTimes no matter what.
That's a dangerous game. That's a dangerous game.
I like to live on the edge.
95 Winston says 3-1 to the Arsenal. Yannick Max says 3-2 Arsenal. Alvaro and Laka to score. I think Big Gun D says 2-1. Omar says 3-0. These are all positive. And Mancunian and Reading.
And that's how I know we're gonna drop points. Because look at this. Look at the predictions for Southampton before that game on Twitter and the big Twitter accounts. What's the prediction going to be? All losses and draws. And I'm like, that's the one reason.
People predicted we win against Sheffield, and we did. So,
well, forget that. I'm talking about Southampton. Because that's
forget that evidence.
What are you, some sort of barrister or something like that, John? Look, it was all negative. I said that's the one reason I think we might actually get a result today is because of all the negativity. So now we got all the positivity, and you mark my words, we're dropping points. I hope not. I hope not. And I'll be wearing this. So.
The words are marked.
Well, we would drop points, except I'm going to be wearing this.
Thank you ever so much for tuning in, people. We really, really appreciate your time spending your evening with us. Mike, it has been a pleasure. Oh, imagine me saying those words.
I love how you can force it through sometimes. You're a very good actor. Thanks again for joining us on our game show podcast. Check out the Gooners Pod. We do a different kind of show. We're not capable of doing a show like this, so we don't even try. We go for the entertainment and pure comedy value. And you haven't
which you're brilliant at. So take some credit.
Well, look,
you guys are awesome at what you do. So.
Look, we're trying, and when we feel ours to do another podcast, we'll probably let you know. but no, check out the Gooners Pod if you haven't already, and keep punching the like button for Tom because Tom does a great job, and to keep the four of us, now three of us at bay for an hour and a half is no small task. So, and especially for a 25-year-old.
It was going so well. You just couldn't help but to put something there at the end.
Well, look, you're a prodigy. You're a child prodigy.
Oh, Drew, thank you ever so much, mate. Brought some good answers to the show. It's fair to say you meant that John didn't have to speak too much tonight because you answered everything that he was going to say.
I feel like it's either John or I, and then when you get us on the podcast, it's like we're in a slugfest of who wants to speak more, and then we kind of like trade off. It's like, I'll take this one, you get the next one.
Yeah. I get it. It's like a tag team.
You guys should do a podcast where okay. John and Drew, your thoughts, and you alternate words like that story where you have to like build a story. Yeah. Each say one word,
or I'll just have Drew or either me or Drew will just speak, and then the other person just goes, "Yeah, I agree with that." That's
move your mouth to the word.
Yeah.
Good to hang out with you guys.
Where can people find your stuff?
Oh, just on FM Lair on Twitter, and then various websites. I'm sorry.
The latest stuff. What's the latest thing that's out?
Just on Yama, I wrote a piece about market value and how we can handle the transfer market with Arsenal. So
you've reached the point where you say Yama, you don't even have to say you are my Arsenal.
You are my Arsenal.
Yama's just,
no, that's habit, and I'm also being really.
It's like Beyonce, Yama,
like how you picked the Black reference, Mike.
Yeah. Wait.
Name one white person that just has one name.
Madonna.
Oh, okay. Well, then you just don't want to answer.
Took him 2 seconds. Had that loaded. Like he knew.
I name another one though.
Blondie.
Name three. All right.
Okay. We keep.
Oh dear. You can follow Drew on Twitter at FM Lera. And John, it's been a pleasure. You can follow John on Twitter at FM Lera to get his thoughts.
Nope.
And you promised us now there's a podcast. You said
there's going to be
week.
one. I'll just wait for Drew to do his, and I'll retweet it, and then there we go. You have my.
You should do a podcast where you like transcribe Drew's last podcast and just read the transcript, and then say it's yours. And then
He's just watching it with the captions on. Like, okay, yeah. Oh, Johnny's unamused.
Oh no, we'll just leave it at that.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. The thing I've missed the most is your intro music. I love that. I love that.
I know.
That's why
I've actually found it. I found it on my other computer because we had moved, so I'm gonna have it in there.
Oh, I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I know you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we learned how to podcast listening to your podcast. So
Really?
No,
That's sorry about that.
no.
I'm sorry. I will say. For Mike,
It is one of the first ones I used to listen to him walking around.
I feel like you get a lot of credit for how funny you say things, but I don't think you get enough credit for how loud you say them.
To be heard, you have to be loud. So that's,
Right, it's been an absolute pleasure being with you guys this evening.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate that.
It's been a real pleasure, guys. We will see you tomorrow for a show, which is definitely going to be a tactical breakdown show on, fingers crossed, Dominic Jobbersley. So I'm looking forward to that one. And also, there should be a preview show for the next game. Oh, always going to Google it.
I'm clearing my schedule for tomorrow.
How you pronounce it as well, because I'm being joined by the best named man in the world, Wolfgang, who is the German and Austrian Football Manager researcher. So that's going to be a good video. But yeah, preview for the Norwich game will be out as well. So tune in for that one. Turn those notifications on so you know when it hits you, and click that subscribe button so you don't miss a show. Drop a like on the video. We'll see you very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.